What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. So today I wanted to bring to you my top 5 cards out of Circuit Break, because this weekend is the Circuit Break sneak peek, and if there's any cards on my top 5 that you guys aren't currently aware of that are coming out, I wanted to give you guys this list not only to share with you guys my favorite cards in the upcoming set, but they're cards that you definitely might want to look out for if you have the opportunity to get your hands on them at the sneak peek, whether you pull them from the packs or if you have some friends that are willing to trade. Either way, it's a really good scenario. Now, before we get into the list, I do want to mention that the Legendary Dragon Decks giveaway has only a couple days left before it concludes, so if you want to have the opportunity to win your very own Legendary Dragon Decks, check out the link in the description below, and if you're too late for the giveaway, if you're watching this video a little bit later on, be sure to subscribe because I host Yu-Gi-Oh! Giveaways every month. So, without further ado, let's get right into that top 5. Starting off, of course, with number 5, we have Distrito, the Lost Dragons Frisian. Distrito is a card I'm really excited for that is coming out because it enables so many different combos for so many different decks, and it's an example of a really good generic card that I'm happy to see that they printed into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! For those of you who don't know, if you have Distrito either in your hand or graveyard, you can pay half your life points and target a monster you control that's level 6 or lower, special summon Distrito, and reduce Distrito's level by the level of the targeted monster. So Distrito's level 7, so if you target a level 1 monster, you special it out, lose half your life points, and then Distrito becomes level 6. But why does this matter? Well, Distrito happens to be a tuner, which means it pretty much opens up so many easy Synchro 7 plays because of the fact that that's essentially what the card is made for. And you're going to see Distrito making a splash in a lot of different decks like ABC and Spirals in the upcoming future because it just so happens that Ancient Fairy Dragon is a level 7 Synchro, and both of those strategies heavily rely on field spells. So you can kind of see where the synergy is there, but Distrito also happens to be a dark monster, which means you have like synergy with Allure of Darkness if you just want to get rid of it. It's a card of Consonance target, and it's also a good candidate for Dragon's Ravine. There's just a lot of really good things that Distrito has going for it, and I really love when Konami prints extremely generic cards like this that a lot of different decks can utilize in many different ways. It enables plays beyond Ancient Fairy Dragon as well. Any generic level 7 Synchro is a very good candidate for Distrito, and that's why it had to make my top 5 list. But moving on to number 4, we have Borreload Dragon, formerly known as Verilode Dragon in the OCG. Borreload Dragon is one hell of a Link 4 monster. It also happens to be the background card of Circuit Break itself. But Borreload Dragon is a Link 4 monster with 3,000 attack. It can't be targeted by your opponent's card effects, and also once per turn you can reduce the attack and defense of a monster by 500, and your opponent can't respond to that. So that's pretty cool. It's not really something that's going to come up too often, but it means that Borreload Dragon can potentially get over monsters that are, 3,400 attack or below. But that might not even be necessary because of Borreload Dragon's other effect, which is one of the craziest effects I've ever read on a card ever. So if Borreload Dragon attacks, at the start of the damage step, you can take control of the monster Borreload Dragon is attacking and put it in a link zone that Borreload Dragon's link marker points to, and then you send that card to the graveyard during the end phase of the next turn. So that is insane because you have to remember, when you take control of the monster with Borreload, you're still in the battle phase, meaning whatever you take control of can attack. Your opponent no longer has the card, and during the end phase of the next turn, which means during your opponent's end phase, they're going to lose that monster because it's going to be sent to the graveyard. It also can dodge destruction effects because cards that can't be destroyed by card effects or anything like that, Borreload Dragon sends to the graveyard. It doesn't destroy. So the fact that they packed so many cool effects into a single effect of Borreload Dragon makes me really excited for the card and has a lot of potential to out a lot of very annoying boss monsters. It does have a bit of a hefty requirement, needing at minimum 3 effect monsters to summon, but honestly, for an effect like this, Borreload Dragon is an amazing finisher and can be ultimately what you want to have in your extra deck if you're trying to out problematic boss monsters like Beals or anything along those lines. Now moving on to number 3, we have number 41, Babushka. Babushka is a card I have been looking forward to for so long. We were in so much confusion as to when we were going to be getting Babushka here in the TCG, but then it got announced that it was going to be a giant card for YCS London, and we saw that it was going to be released in Circuit Break. And that's a really big deal because Babushka is arguably one of the strongest rank 4 Xyz monsters ever printed in this game. And the reason for that is because its effects are incredibly strong. First of all, it's generic, so it only needs 2 level 4 monsters, but in addition to that, as long as Babushka is in defense mode, it's basically a skill drain on legs, meaning it negates the effects of all face-up monsters on the field, and not only that, it also switches them all to defense position as well, meaning that you can use this in a couple different ways. You can negate continuous effects of monsters that are currently on the field. You have a skill drain that you have access to, assuming you're playing a deck that utilizes level 4 monsters primarily, which is a lot of competitive decks for the most part. And in addition to that, just being able to have a card like that, let's say you don't open the most optimal hand, you can go into something like Babushka and essentially stall for a couple turns because your opponent's going to be locked down on skill drain as well as yourself, and if they can't utilize any of their effects, that might buy you enough time to be able to gather the resources you need to start going off and turning the game more into your favor. I'm really excited for this card if you guys can't tell, because there's so many cool things you can do with it, and the fact it's only a super rare just is icing on the cake. So I'm really excited for that, and you guys definitely want to pick up your Babushkas more than anything at the sneak peek if the opportunity presents itself. Now moving on to number 2, we have Spiral Double Helix. You guys knew this was coming somewhere on the list because Spiral Double Helix takes the deck of Spiral and just pushes it over the top. If you guys have been paying any attention to the OCG or any of the content that I've been covering in regards to the OCG, you guys should know that Spiral is just an absolute force to be reckoned with, and that's partially due in part to Double Helix, because it's the card that Spiral needed that kind of puts everything together. It gives you access to Master Plan, it only requires 2 Spiral monsters, it's very easy to make, the effect is very strong, and it enables so many different things for the deck that it just makes the deck the absolute just behemoth that it currently is in Japan. And you guys should definitely look out for these because this is going to be an expensive card at sneak peek and probably afterwards. Even though it's only an ultra rare, it's still going to be probably one of the most expensive ultra rares we've seen out of a newer set with 4 ultra rares per box that we've had in a long time, because even though there's going to be more of them out than, let's say, if Double Helix were a secret rare, you know, it's still going to be expensive because Spiral is such a hot deck right now, especially in the OCG. A lot of people are coveting Double Helix, and a lot of people are probably going to be looking for it at sneak peek. So if you want to make some easy money, you can probably be able to drop these off at their highest price at sneak peek, and if you're not looking to play Spirals, that's what I would recommend doing as well. So before we get into number 1, I did have one honorable mention because I didn't know where to fit it on the list, and that is Akashic Magician. This is a really cool generic link too that just requires 2 monsters of the same type, and it's a lot like Code Talker in the OCG in terms of its link markers, and the effect is really cool as well. It can bounce the monsters that it's pointing to, which its markers are up and down, so that means you can possibly bounce a monster back to your opponent's extra deck, or even back to their hand, depending on the type of card that it is. So it's non-destructive removal, which is strong. It also has a nice excavating effect, kind of like, I'll say, the Sylvan High Protector, where you can add cards to your hand of a declared name. That's really neat, but the link markers this card has are very beneficial as well, especially considering we don't have Code Talker. So I felt it definitely deserved an honorable mention. It is a secret rare, so it's going to be a little bit harder to get, but that doesn't make it any less significant. So moving on to my number 1 card of Circuit Break. If you haven't already figured out, it is none other than Evenly Matched. Formerly known as Struggling Battle in the OCG, Evenly Matched almost changes the dynamic of how we're going to play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's very rare that we get a card that has such a tremendous impact on the game because of its effect, but Evenly Matched is definitely one of those cards. Basically, if you control no cards, you can activate Evenly Matched from your hand, and upon activation, your opponent has to banish cards on their field that they control face down until they control the same number of cards as you. And one of the most just ridiculous, applications for this card is that if your opponent goes first, makes a crazy board, you have to do this at the end of your battle phase, so you do have to lose your battle phase in order to do this, but you just end your battle phase, end the battle phase, slap down evenly matched, and now your opponent has to just pretty much just get rid of all their resources that they accumulated during their turn 1, bringing the game to a more even state. And that's just, it's insane. It's like, it's another card that everyone's going to be having to play around, because if this card exists, which is going to make an impact in the meta, you need to realize now you can't overcommit like you used to, because there's always the lingering threat that your opponent might have evenly matched, and they can just completely deplete all of your resources. Then in main phase 2, build up their board, and because you lost everything, you're going to be at a severe disadvantage by comparison. This card is just absolutely phenomenal. It's probably going to be the most expensive card out of the set, but we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds. So guys, those are just my top 5 cards out of Circuit Break. Let me know down in the comments what your guys' favorite cards are out of Circuit Break. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you really like this video, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.